I was having a conversation yesterday, which was sort of an outflow of a conversation that I had earlier, which was what exactly is a midcore game? I remember in the early days of the casual game business, people would ask us what casual games are, and our answer would be, well, just about anything that's not hardcore. And yesterday, somebody actually described to me midcore games as everything that's not casual. So we've now come full circle. When I was talking with Andrew a few weeks ago about doing a presentation here at the show, my interest was to have him, because his company has pretty much been defining what the midcore is, to come and really give us a clear picture of what midcore games really are and how they differ from other kinds of games that we might have made or played in the past. So with that, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you for coming, Andrew.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. And I apologize, my voice is a little soft, so the folks working on the audio equipment might need to turn it up. Super excited to be here in Hamburg talking to each of you about this category. Midcore games and midcore gamers are an area that Kabam has staked out to own. This is a category that we care very much about. I hope in a few years' time you'll actually see a Midcore Connect, which would be really awesome, kind of graduation of the category. So what I'm going to go through in this presentation is, one, just a quick overview about Kabam, because one of our strengths is building these midcore games and driving monetization and live service. One of our weaknesses is actually being present at conferences and kind of talking about what we do and what we're all about. Then that's more just background to provide context on the understanding that we have about this category. So then I'll talk a little bit about some research we've done. Actually, multiple research pieces that I had our consumer insights team kind of merge together for the presentation that David asked us to do. And then I'm actually going to focus on one category of games where I think you'll see the strongest contrast between mid-core and core game features and how those kind of tie to the consumer segments that define mid-core and core, and then talk a little bit about that. And I'd like for this, to the greatest extent possible, given people are either hungover or jet lag or both, to have you guys engage in it. So I may ask you to raise your hands, so hopefully the darkness doesn't screw things up. So let's start with the obligatory speaker slide, which I always dislike. So I'm the president of Kabam Studios. Kabam Studios is 400 people strong. We have offices in Beijing, Vancouver now, Austin, and San Francisco. My background is somewhat weird and unique because I'm a game designer, but I've done everything from product marketing to biz dev to product management to project management. Worked on a number of really exciting projects, but this project on Spore, working with Will Wright and the EA team, was really what kind of introduced me to free-to-play. That was when, back in those days, I was very much attending conferences like Casual Connect, trying to understand what was coming down the pike, if you will, and trying to understand what microtransactions were all about. This was like 2005, 2006. At that time, microtransactions in Asia was about, I'd say, 8 years old. So it was a very defined and established method or business model for Asian gaming, but had not yet made it to the US and had only just begun to emerge in Europe. And then before that, or after that I should say, worked at Outspark, which was a publisher of Korean MMORPGs in the US market, and that's where I learned how to do monetization design, game design, and then worked at High Five, where I learned about web technology and distribution. So, Kabam. Last year was a banner year for us. We were very fortunate to have a number of really exciting successes. As a company, we're a fully diversified company in that, and somewhat unique for a social game company. We started out on Facebook with Kingdoms of Camelot, and today, through just revenue growth across the portfolio, only 30% of our revenue is on Facebook. 70% comes from our web destination site, kabam.com, and or mobile, tablet. So we had the #1 grossing iOS application in 2012. That was Kingdoms of Camelot Mobile, the spiritual successor to Kingdoms of Camelot for the web. It's not like Candy Crush where the games are connected. Kingdoms of Camelot for mobile is actually an evolution of the game design best practice that we've established with the first game. And between that game and the Hobbit game and also another game, Arcane Empires, we hit #1 grossing in 50 markets. And that would be daily grossing. And those are unique markets. As a company, we're one of the top 5 grossing gaming companies on mobile, which is a little known fact. We have 11 million registered users on kabam.com, which makes it the 4th largest gaming destination site in the world. at least the Western market. And then something that's very unusual for an American company, but very common for European companies is, as a company, we've made a strong commitment to localization. So we support 14 languages around the world. Our European to US revenue mix is higher than our competitors in the American market. We very much believe in the European market and doing things properly for this market. Just in terms of scale, for the last 12 months as a company, we generated $180 million of revenue. We experienced 70% growth last year, which was phenomenal. We have $45 million in the bank, and we're profitable. So very much an international company. We have a new office in Vancouver. We acquired a company called Exploding Barrel Games. In general, we only try to acquire companies that have an explosive name because it fits to the Kabam brand. San Francisco, which is our headquarters, 350 employees there, doing everything from distribution, which is one half of the business, or the studios, which is the side that I'm on. We have Austin, Texas, where we have a crack team of MMO developers working on a next-gen product. Luxembourg, where we have an operating footprint that focuses on the localization I just talked about. And Beijing, which is a full-blown development office. At Kabam, we try to do things differently. This team is unique in that it's a almost entirely fully ethnically Chinese team building Western products. So it's not that we're telling them what to build, they're actually making those decisions and driving it themselves. So let's talk about why I'm here. So I'm here to talk about the mid-core gamer. So I thought it would be useful to talk about the definition of two types of gamers we already know quite well. The casual gamer, which is the subject matter of this conference, and the core gamer. And I'm just kind of curious up front, and we only need to do half of the equation. How many people in this room would consider themselves core gamers? Oh, wow, a lot of folks. Why are you guys at Casual Connect? You're trying to take advantage of the casual opportunity. Good. I want to tell you about the mid-core opportunity too. So here's my definition of a core gamer. Well, no, you wish. That is definitely not a core gamer. That's definitely what a core gamer wants. Oftentimes never gets. I won't make you raise hands if you've already got her. Core gamer, boom, more like that. StarCraft player, super hardcore, wearing a jumpsuit. I don't see any jumpsuits in the audience. Casual gamer. I'm sorry, David, I'm steering into the stereotypes explicitly, and Tanil, don't shoot me, sorry. So what is the mid-core gamer? So this is what our research has empirically told us about the core gamer. And I think as we go through this for core gamers and for casual gamers, it will be very clear that the mid-core gamer is a compelling category, and it's actually very close to casual. So you folks being here means that, one, you're going to learn about this category, but two, if you're focused on casual game development, you're pretty close to the mark already. So core gamers, 72% male. It's astounding. Super high. Makes sense given the games that you typically associate with core. Call of Duty, PlanetSide 2, games of that nature. And then this is shocking, and I feel like this has changed over the years, but 30% of contemporary core gamers are under the age of 24. So we're talking about an audience that really spans into teens, young adults, and even below that. Top 3 devices, not surprisingly, Xbox 360. Smartphone came back as the second thing, which is interesting. So not tablet, even though most recent surveys for the holidays shows that kids want tablets as their preferred gaming device, smartphone is the second highest indexing. And my personal belief is that's because if your parents are going to buy you something, they're going to buy you a smartphone first and a tablet second. And then PS3. And this is data largely drawn from the US, so there's a little bit of a geographic bias, so I just kind of call that out. But nevertheless, we're talking consoles and smartphones. Top 5 genres. Again, not surprising for all of you folks in the room that are core gamers. You probably play action-adventure games. You probably play first-person shooters. You probably play strategy games. Number one reason why core gamers play games is to kill time, which is interesting. So this is self-reported. At most gaming conferences, people say, oh, I want to progress, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to be entertained. It's to kill time. So let's talk about the casual gamer. 60% female, so almost the exact opposite of the core gamer. Only 20% of them, both guys and girls, are under the age of 24. So it's an older demographic, and we know this intuitively. Top 3 devices. I was very surprised to see this. We index super high. Smartphone, Xbox 360. I was surprised to see the Xbox 360 show up there. I think it does speak to what they've done with the live arcade, and I think it also speaks to what they've done with Kinect. Top 5 genres. So shouldn't be a surprise for anyone that's working in this space. A lot of the best casual games are in these categories. I mean, I play Candy Crush every day. So Puzzle Breakout, Card Casino, Board, Word IQ, Hidden Object. I also play Hidden Object because I'm going to find a way to do a hardcore version of that at some point. Details to emerge later. But also, just like the core gamers, they play games to kill time. So ultimately, these are people that are looking for a break. They're looking for something to do, to fill time. They're looking for a little relaxation, which is a really strong driver for casual gameplay. And now let's talk about the mid-core gamer. So these are people that we identified, so it's a quantitative survey, statistically significant sample. We focused on using games that were representative of core, mid-core, and casual as proxies to define people that were clearly delineated as such. So we pulled people that only played Call of Duty. We pulled people that only played Kingdoms of Camelot. We pulled people that only played Clash of Clans. We pulled people that only played Candy Crush or Bejeweled, stuff like that. 55% male. So just slightly male, but it's actually pretty evenly balanced. 18% under 24 years of age. And that's a very key difference between core gamers and mid-core gamers. And I'll talk more about that as we get into the presentation. Top 3 devices, check this out. So here you can start to see increasingly similarities with casual. Smartphone index is high, so dissimilar. But Wii, number 2, Xbox 360, number 3. So kudos for Microsoft, they index on all 3 categories, which is impressive. But the Wii shows up high here. And then again, more similarities with casual. Look at that number 1 category. Puzzle Breakout, same as casual. Farm City Management, number 2. Right? That's not one that you'd expect for mid-core. Most people would assume that strategy, which is our core competence, would be the next one, and it's not. And then RPG 3, that makes some sense. You know, RPG is a giant free-to-play category. It's obviously something that provides narrative, depth, progression, a lot of things that are important to today's types of gamers. And then Card Casino. So that means like games like Zynga Poker are actually mid-core games. And that makes some sense given the targeting and the design and the aesthetic and the way that they position the product. And then finally, why do people play? They play to kill time. So there's a universal reason why people play games. There are platforms that are more aligned with the contemporary market. There are genres that are more aligned with multiple segments. In this case, the greatest overlap being between mid-core and casual. So I would posit that the mid-core gamer actually looks very similar to each of us in this room. They're people that are over 24 years of age. They're both guys and girls. They're people that are, by virtue of their age, busy. They don't have time to sit down for 10 hours to play a game. And because they're time sensitive and because they're professionals, they have disposable income. They're willing to pay to save time. So now that you know the definition of mid-core, I want to do the survey again. And this time, I'm going to ask not whether you're a core gamer or a casual gamer, and we know the majority of the audience is core, but I'd like to have you raise your hand if you align with the description of a mid-core gamer.
I'm at least 55% male.
Yes. We'll check later. No, it's a real truth, and this is, I think, a key point, and I'm super excited about this opportunity to speak, and that David had the prescience to kind of line this thought up, because there's always been a challenge between being a core gamer and playing casual games. Like, I've played Bejeweled my entire life. It's a beautiful game. And the classic definition of a core gamer is not someone that plays puzzle games, that doesn't like Sudoku. But a mid-core gamer does like those games, and ultimately, it's because what we're trying to do as consumers is kill time, have fun with games. So let's dig a little deeper into what the discrete differences are. And this type of information is actually very useful for anyone in the room that's a producer or designer. So these are just, I believe, 5 attitudinal differences between mid-core and core. I'm going to drop casual because you've got a number of excellent companies at this conference that can talk to that point. So mid-core gamers enjoy helping others with their gaming experience. And I think this reflects kind of a generational difference. As we see millennials kind of mature and become young adults, young families, and so forth, they bring with them all of the social aspects that are hallmarks of their generation, the comfort with social networking, social media. And so they kind of just expect to be able to engage with other folks, to be able to help other folks. You know, it's overly simplistic to say that people only like to play with other people for competitive purposes. In our games, we have multiple layers of social interactions between helping people, hurting people, colluding with other people, and then screwing them out of some fabulous reward. There are layers of social interaction that are nuanced and awesome, and it very much mirrors kind of what you find in real life. Unlocking new game content. So this is really interesting. Collecting and unlocking things is very important to the mid-core gamer. And I'd love to understand that more deeply. Like, this is categorically indexes higher than core gamers, which is surprising because you'd think, based on the construct of Borderlands or any of the contemporary RPGs, that collecting and unlocking things is also very important for core gamers. But this is over-indexed for mid-core. As I mentioned, collecting objects, but then with the added component of achievements. I do think Xbox revolutionized the gaming market by introducing Xbox Live achievements. You now see that permeate through a number of different things. I think Congregate does an amazing job with their achievements platform or API. But it's now almost required. People expect to be able to unlock things, and it's manifest in any number of things. And achievements, we've tested this on other studies. Achievements can mean very different things to different folks. So at Kabam, we generally use very deep quest trees to kind of get people to learn more about our games. And when you ask users whether they think they're quests or whether they think they're achievements, they actually confuse the two concepts together. So it's the notion of achievements in the most abstract that people care about. It's being rewarded, whether it's direct value or just confirmation that you've done something good, that you're progressing in the game, that you're getting better at the game. Playing whatever they want, whenever. This point is really important. Like, I'm not embarrassed by the fact that I play super core games, like even ridiculous Japanese games like Catherine. I'm not embarrassed by the fact that I play super casual games. Actually, kind of enjoy the breadth. I'm comfortable sharing that. I'm comfortable with that being on my Facebook profile, being in my feeds. Mid-core gamers are the exact same way. And then socializing with friends. So this is different than helping others, and I kind of touched on it with helping, but the socialization aspect, the notion of friendships has been redefined, and it's culturally different, so I won't generalize, but at least in the United States, it's very possible to have friendships with other people that you never actually meet in person. And just like any of the MMORPG companies, Kabam has thousands of excellent stories where people became friends playing our games online, and then eventually meeting up in person. In some cases, entire alliances flying to have barbecues together and things like that. So spend behavior. Again, somewhere in the middle, but slightly more casual. Mid-core gamers are more likely than casual gamers to have spent, but not as likely as core gamers. And then here are some really key stats on spend behavior. Mid-core is 34% less likely to buy an item that is incredibly hard to earn. So core gamers, if you, the example in the last presentation where there's that one overpowered gun that had like ridiculous stats for hard currency, that would appeal to a core gamer more than a mid-core gamer. If the price is so high that it's perceived as being impossible to get, the signal to a mid-core gamer is that this game is grindy and it's not a good use of my time. Time is important to me because I'm really busy, so I'm not going to play it. 20% more likely to buy an item that cannot be earned. So that's kind of interesting. Because they're price sensitive, they're not price sensitive because they are kind of further in their lives, my belief is that they're willing to buy things that are perceived as like overtly exclusive or luxury items. And cannot be earned is largely determined based on like price. So it'd be like a functionally better version of a weapon, ideally that's only temporarily presented within the store, so it's only there for a day or two. They're 13% more likely to buy something they know they need. So they're self-aware of their needs and they're willing to satisfy those needs by spending because they're not price sensitive. 4% more likely to wait for an unlock. So that speaks to the timer mechanic. And then, again, a lot of similarities with casual, and this is the data point that most strongly proves the point that the age of mid-core gamers has a very heavy influence on their gaming preference. Here you see different devices. Each of those bars and the percentages on the left represents what percent of the total sampled population for that device plays games for greater than an hour. So what you see with casual is that they don't play for greater than an hour. So you can think of it the opposite way. They play for short sessions, right? 30-minute, hour bursts, or at least that's what they self-report when we survey them. Interestingly, the same thing with mid-core, right? And if you remember, just at that lowest level, under 24, and if you look at the full distributions, I didn't want to bring all that data because it gets a little heavy, but if you look at the full distributions, they're very similar. We're talking about an older demographic. These are not young kids that only go to school for 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day, and then are at home chilling, watching TV, playing games. These people are busy. They have kids. They have to run around and do things. So then David and Eric, when we were talking about this talk, we were talking about, well, how do we make this practical? Because there are a lot of great presentations on stats. There are a lot of great presentations on demographics and trends. There are a lot of great presentations on monetization, how to get the most from a given platform. But it oftentimes doesn't connect to the actual development of games. It doesn't actually connect to what people are doing in the marketplace. So I thought I'd take a stab at it, and hopefully you guys will find this interesting and useful. I want to compare Real Racing 2 with CSR Racing. And I won't speak to which is which from a demographic standpoint. I'm sure that many of you can kind of intuit it already. But let's go through how these games are similar and different, and then talk about why that's important for a given audience. So Real Racing 2, gotta love that. Can you believe that that's a mobile device? Well, it's CG, so it's a little bit cheating, but like the console talk earlier before, which talked about how mobile devices are able to replicate the fidelity of mobile, that is where that platform is going, and it's super exciting. For anyone that's building games on mobile, the potential to elevate the quality of game development to that level, I think, is something that we've been waiting for a long time and which was largely not available on the web. CSR Racing, similarly awesome. I mean, we're talking 20,000 poly count car models on a mobile device, some of them that are 2 to 3 years old, lighting the full 9. Then Real Racing 2, this is actual gameplay. Doesn't look much different than the CG, honestly. Obviously, the CG has more effects, but look at that. You're actually steering the car. In this case, I'm doing it pretty unsuccessfully. And you're racing really cool cars. You're driving branded M3s on a racetrack. And CSR. You're drag strip racing in some culturally ambiguous location. And you've got NOS, so it's kind of got that urban street credibility to it. But again, beautiful cars, beautiful models, even has reflections going on. So let's talk about key stats. So I think this kind of understanding is important for anyone that's doing product development. There are some business model differences between the two games, and then there are also some technical differences between the two games, which makes them kind of hard to compare just apples to apples. So first and foremost, CSR is a free game. It's free to play. You download it, you play it. You choose whether you want to spend in the game. Real Racing is a paid download, although I believe they've given it away for free at times. There are in-app purchases, IAP, but largely the game is monetized through this upfront payment of $5. So right off the bat, you're sending a very different signal to your customer. In the first case, CSR, you're trying to appeal to a customer, and you're saying, try this game. This app icon, this app description, these screenshots are compelling enough to get you to try it. If you try it, you're going to like it. And only if you like it enough will you pay for it. With the other game, they have to convince you that it's so awesome out the gate that you're going to buy it. So that CG you see in the beginning of the game is actually the CG that you'd see promoted with the app and on the web. Second big difference is real racing is 3x the size in terms of megabytes. That is a huge delta, right? I believe the OTA requirements are the same here as they are in the US, but anything over 50 megabytes you can only download over an Ethernet or Wi-Fi connection. Oh, and I was also surprised. CSR is only in English, which I found very fascinating. Does anyone know if that's true? Like, is there a French version of CSR? Maybe it's a different app? Okay, so I'm not positive. I don't think the game necessarily requires English, or requires localization, but I was surprised to see the other game is localized. And then, requirements-wise, both games support a large number of devices. There's more verbose information here on what's supported, but CSR goes back pretty far, and it kind of speaks to the quality of their technology. They can run the game on a 3GS, and it still looks awesome like that. So let's talk about features, right? Like when you're buying a car, to stay within the metaphor, you oftentimes look at what comes bundled with this car. That does it have safety bags? Does it have anti-lock brakes? Does it have air conditioning? So CSR has this notion of collecting. In fact, the game steers into that. And if you remember from the Midcore slide, collecting is an important aspect of what Midcore gamers look like. But so does real racing too. Real racing has collections. They're licensed cars just like CSR. And you can get a bunch of different ones. You can even paint them, if I recall correctly. CSR racing has stats. Real racing has stats. So you kind of get that feedback loop that core gamers care about, the improving, competing, being better. But it's not exclusive to core, because we also know casuals like it. Leaderboards are super effective on casual games. Upgrades. So CSR, extensive upgrade system. Here you can see I've got a fully tricked out M3 Coupe. I wish I had that in real life. It's a beautiful car. Real racing, same car, fully tricked out. Carbon fiber roof, super awesome. And soft currency purchases, which you can buy with hard currency. Which brings us to in-app purchases. CSR kind of pioneering this new approach that Supercell and other guys did of merchandising virtual currency, basically big bundles of cash. Real racing falling back on the more traditional, just buy it as you need it. We'll force fit the bundle that you need. The other model works better, by the way. Then let's talk about feature comparisons. So basically these games have ostensibly the same features, and I picked the most standard hallmarks of what you'd find within a game, a contemporary game. If you keep going through the list, there's about 30 other features that both games have exactly the same. So you could say almost the trappings of these games are identical. Licenses, real-world locations, kind of a real aesthetic as opposed to like a cartoony or casual aesthetic. They also have social, which we know is part of the Midcore. You can share your photographs. They also have car licenses. Let's talk about the differences. Why do these games have different levels of success? Why do they map to different types of customers? The biggest one, for anyone that's played this game, although they do an exceptional job of this, the game has direct control, which implicitly makes it a much harder game. You are holding the device, and you're controlling it like this, and you're pressing the screen to brake. Now, super impressive what they've done to simplify that gameplay experience, and the flow, the feel of it is exceptional. It's, I think, competitive with anything on console. Second big thing, and it's a consequence of the control scheme and the way that the core gameplay works, is they kind of put you into this difficulty selection flow, more like a console game. So like when I fire up Call of Duty, early on there's always that question of like, what level of difficulty do you want to have with this game, right? People that are kind of casual gamers or people that are more time sensitive will always go for the lower setting. People that care more about mastery and kind of pushing to that highest level will go for the hardcore difficulty. So with their newer game, Real Racing 3, they are introducing the notion of better rubber banding of the AI, but this is actually required in order to make sure your core gameplay experience hits the broadest audience possible. Drag strip racing. So I trust that everyone's played this game because it's got an enormous reach, and I hope that you've all played Real Racing 2. I think it's a phenomenal game as well. But this mechanic is super simple, super satisfying, and super short. Real racing tracks, although you can configure how long the races are, they generally are fixed sessions that run 3 to 5 minutes in length, whereas this drag strip race is usually, I think, a minute or less. And it's a pretty straightforward loop, pioneered by CarTown on the web with Facebook. Basically just red light, green light, gas, shift, shift, shift. If you're skillful at how you start the gas and shift, you cross the finish line before someone, unless they have a better car than you. The other thing that CSR has, which is really important and different, is progression through quest, basically a quest system. And they have different modes of gameplay that are evident with each of that. And as a corollary, they have a leveling system, so you level up, you become better, and that system is not in Real Racing. So let's add these things on that are differences. Direct control, Real Racing. Difficulty setting, Real Racing. Drag strip racing, CSR. Quests, CSR. So we're starting to see some divergence, and we're seeing divergence in the core gameplay loop of the game, as we talk about at Kabam. And so at the core, these games are fundamentally different, even though they have very similar attributes all around them. Now let's talk a little bit about the features, this time in the context of core gamers, and this is where I'd like to make it a little more interactive. So let's keep the focus on Midcore. Based on what we've learned about Midcore till now and the commentary I've provided, I think we'll be pretty good at guessing what these features are aligned with. So, collections. Raise your hand if you think this is a Midcore feature. Come on, guys. All right, cool, good. Correct. What about progression? Based on the market research we reviewed, where is it? Midcore? A little bit of a trick question. You guys are half right, it's in the middle. Both audiences prefer progression. That's why leveling systems are found in almost every genre of core gaming today. It really is kind of interesting and kind of a topic of a different conversation that the RPG subsystems are now part of everything, from first-person shooters to racing games, etc. Stats, core gamer. This is an easy one. Upgrades. Raise your hand if you think it's mid-core. Definitely mid-core. Or core, sorry. Oh, that's right. Slight bias towards core. You guys are right. In-app purchases, I'll go mid-core. I'll go a little faster through this, sorry. Socializing, mid-core bias. Car licenses is both for this category. We've done separate studies on branding and licensing, and you need real licenses in the racing category for your game to be authentic. Direct control is very core. Difficulty settings is very core. Drag strip racing, because it's short session, is mid-core. And quests actually bias towards mid-core. So this is actual feedback from the same segments that we talked about before. So it's people that are strongly typed to core, mid-core, casual, telling us how much they prefer these features in games. So let's connect the dots. What does this mean about the games? And I think by now you know. Now, contemplate the success of CSR and how big that game's become. And it really does speak to the mid-core opportunity, which we believe in very strongly, and we've oriented our entire company around. Although I still do want to do that hidden object game. The mid-core opportunity is actually the growing market opportunity today. It is where most of the core gamers from yesterday are going because their lifestyle is taking them that way. And for you folks in the room that are doing casual, that's an exciting opportunity because it is close to what you know. And for those of you that are core game players doing casual, it's nice because the gameplay systems are actually very close to what you enjoy. And then from a development standpoint, you know how to build. So that's the conclusion of the presentation. And I thought I'd also use the opportunity to promote one of our upcoming games, which is Fast and Furious 6. So there's a reason why I know a lot about this category. we're building this game for mobile tablet, and it'll come out later this summer with the movie. So thank you very much, David. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I hope that was useful.
Thank you, Andrew. That's cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Questions for Andrew while we have him on the stage? No questions at all?
I got one guy there.
Hi, could you tell us a little bit more on how you got those numbers?
Yeah.
That would be one question. I actually have a couple.
Go.
Yeah,
Bring
great.
it.
Also, I'd like to know why the PC didn't pop up. Really, the personal computer didn't pop up really.
Yes.
And maybe if I can squeeze in a third, with the concept of killing time, I had a bit of a problem with that.
Okay. So the first one, it was a quantitative survey. So we invest substantially in market research as a company. We feed it into the product development process. So we use three types of market research. We do traditional quant surveys where we work with vendors to identify a number of different people that fit the target segments that we want to hit, and they help us solicit responses to usually email-based surveys. So in that case, because we were going broad for the context of this presentation, we ended up blanketing much broader than we usually do. We usually just focus on Midcore, but I wanted to bring data in for the broader group. As I mentioned, it is mostly US and it's North America, so it's a little bit different. Like PC, I would imagine, would index a little bit higher in Europe, to your third question. I'll go to your second question. PC was on the list of platforms surveyed, so it did not show up as a top 3. I believe we had social as a platform as well, because most people view Facebook as a platform. I do as well, actually. I think the interesting thing about Facebook's rise is that it was the next console for the Western market. So PC and social were both on the list, and they didn't show up in the top 3 for any segment, which is astounding. We could have gotten a biased result. We did go for 95% statistical significance. So 1 in 20 chance all this data is incorrect. But as I can see it, PC is not the growing category. You can see it categorically across any number of different industries. Mobile tablet is replacing the use case for the web. Mobile phone, of course, is adding because you're on the go. You're engaged in internet usage that you wouldn't normally been able to do. Tablet is very clearly eating into laptop sales. You can see it. We identified it last year, which is why we steered so heavily into mobile last year. But Mary Meeker, the famous research analyst at Kleiner Perkins, former equity research analyst, she talked about that extensively in her most recent report. You can see that tablet sales are just crushing laptop sales. And the use case for tablet is people do it either on the couch or they do it in the bed. And the sessions are longer. So it's going to overlap with console, basically. And then to your last point on killing time, that was actually the response. That was the phrase that we put in the survey, and that's the response that people gave to us. So it's a self-reported affiliation with that phrase. And it was the highest indexed. There were other reasons given. It's not like it was 100%, but it was the largest representative category, and it was the highest on all 3. Good? Cool.
Thank you for your presentation, Andrew. I had a question about, so we have these 3 groups, like casual gamers, mid-core gamers, and core gamers. And how do you think the proportions of these groups will change over time? Do casual gamers over time become more like mid-core gamers? Can core gamers become mid-core gamers? What do you think about this?
I definitely think there's a renaissance going on in gaming overall, and that's part of the reason why I enjoy attending conferences like Casual Connect. I think last year, for example, us swinging all 12 of the games we have in development into mobile was a direct response to attending Casual Connect Singapore, actually. I was talking to everyone, and they were just, in the market that I feel is the most ahead in free-to-play, every single developer was like, mobile's where we're going. So being at conferences like this, I think you can kind of pull back and see what's happening. In terms of the categorizations, I think that they are really good. They're a good way to conceptualize the audience that you're building games for. But I think they're not necessarily the best way to approach product development once you get down to that level. So for example, casual is an enormous category. It's just now figuring out how to do free-to-play with like deeper monetization systems. You know, I think one of the pioneers in that space would be probably a Big Point's title, Farmerama, where they introduced really core monetization systems within an overtly casual game. You're seeing Candy Crush kind of step up and redefine expectations for Match 3. I think understanding that your target audience is that type of adult gamer that's not looking for super deep, complicated gameplay. They're just looking to take some time out of their day and relax. That's all you need to know. So at that level, you don't need to really target core or casual. It's just what's the kind of use case for this game, and then how do we make this game awesome? And then it's really up to your designers to deliver on that. But without a doubt, and this has been uncovered in the press a lot recently, core gaming as we know it is changing, and core gaming as a retail business is definitely disappearing. And so we've been very public about saying that we believe the next console life cycle will be 32% smaller than the last console life cycle. I can feel that. I won't name names, but I bought a console that just launched recently, and embarrassingly, I didn't have enough power plugs on my TV to plug it in, and I have not turned it on since I bought it. It's literally just sitting there, and I've been playing with my Android devices and my iPad since. So, small examples like that. If you look around the room and you ask people, how much do you fire up your Xbox 360 these days? How much do you fire up your PS3? How much do you fire up your Wii U? People will say, oh, well, have you checked out Camelot? Have you checked out Clash of Clans? Have you checked out Heyday? You know, people the demand is going elsewhere.
I have a question about the audience for midcore games as you surveyed it, and the perception of the audience as it appears to be reached in the actual products.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that the perception of midcore is that it tends to skew male because the games that are midcore tend to skew male, but yet your survey would seem to indicate that there's a substantial female audience. Are you actually seeing that in your games, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So within our products, so I'll share our stats. Our games are actually more core on the midcore spectrum because we've explicitly chosen an aesthetic that's kind of grittier, darker, what have you. So actually take Edgeworld, which is a Facebook game, super like sci-fi, dark, so it's inherently a core theme for Facebook and compare it to Clash of Clans. Let's assume Clash of Clans is a mid-core title, right? It's got a Pixar aesthetic, it's kind of mainstream, 55% male in that case, right? Edgeworld, the most core theme that we have at our company, sci-fi, dark, is 80% male. Kingdoms of Camelot is 65% male. And so it's astounding because Camelot, the gameplay systems are very core, but it attracts a very large number of women. And we find the social interactions are different in our games. We specialize in MMO features. The roles of men and women in our games are very different. And so long as you provide features and functionality that allows them to have great experiences, whatever they're diving for, they'll stick around, they'll spend.
Any other questions for Andrew?
Speaking of consoles, there's this upcoming thing like Android-based cheap home consoles,
Yeah.
which you could argue is targeted towards the mid-core games we're talking about here. What's your view on that, and can you share your opinion on it?
So Kabam view is for sure, we're excited to see more platform diversification. We're excited to see more innovation in the industry. My personal view is it's really hard to build a new platform. When I was a consultant, I worked on the launch of the Xbox, for example, and I was kind of first person seeing how much Microsoft invested in building the Xbox brand. It is so difficult to build a consumer electronics device that reaches mass market scale. And if I just apply a consumer lens on a lot of the value propositions for those games, it's not clear to me why I'd spend $100 to get X device when I can spend $200 to get a tablet that I can take with me outside of the living room. And I think that delta on price is too small to be consequential, because a console game costs $60. So it's not going to convince me. I want the solution that lets me play games wherever I am, that lets me play games the way that I want to play. And bear in mind the market, right? It's people that are time sensitive, that are not price sensitive. They want the best gaming experience for whatever their lifestyle is. And increasingly that is either smartphone or tablet.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much.